The Council of the Stars had ruled the galaxy for 17,000 years. 12 ancient species sat at its head, and they called themselves the Elder Races. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched young species crawl out of their primitive worlds and reach for the stars. And they had decided, long ago, that the galaxy needed order. It needed guidance. It needed them dot from their great station at Nexus Prime. They watched everything. Their sensors stretched across thousands of light years. Their patrol fleets moved through every major trade route. Nothing happened in the Orion Arm without their knowledge. Nothing changed without their permission. So when the sensors detected something strange coming from an unremarkable yellow star in a quiet corner of the galaxy, the Council paid attention. The star was called Sol by the creatures who lived on the third planet orbiting it. The planet was called Earth, and the creatures who lived there called themselves humans. High Observer Kalmuth of the Etherian Concordat was the first to study the readings. He was old, even by the standards of his ancient species. His body was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer like starlight. He had watched over 100 species make their first steps into space. He knew the patterns. He knew what to expect, but these readings did not match the patterns. "This cannot be correct," he said to his assistant. "Run the analysis again." The assistant, a young Etherian named Thielvan, did as she was told. The results came back the same. "High Observer," she said, her voice careful. "The readings are accurate. The species on this planet has achieved faster than light travel." Kalmuth stared at the data for a long moment. "How old is their technological civilization?" "Approximately 400 years, High Observer." "Perhaps less. Impossible." But it was not impossible. It was simply unprecedented. Most species took 10,000 years to develop FDL technology. Some took 20,000. The fastest on record had done it in 6,000 years, and they had been considered a miracle. 400 years was not a miracle. It was an anomaly, and anomalies made the Council nervous. Kalmuth turned to his assistant. "Send word to the Council chambers. We have a rapid ascension anomaly. Classification Priority 1. Thielvan's eyes widened. She knew what that classification meant. In 17,000 years, there had been only 11 species to receive it. 6 of those species no longer existed. The Council had deemed them too dangerous to be allowed to grow. At once, "High Observer," she said, and hurried to send the message. Within hours, the 12 elder races had assembled in the Great Chamber of Stars. The chamber was a vast dome at the heart of Nexus Prime, large enough to hold a small city. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing star maps and sensor data. At the center, 12 thrones arranged in a circle held the representatives of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Speaker Varan of the Lithari spoke first. His body was made of living crystal, and his voice sounded like stones grinding together. "We have reviewed the data. The humans present a potential threat to galactic stability." "Potential threat?" Warlord Sithax of the Krethian Empire let out a harsh laugh. His scales were the color of dried blood, and his teeth were sharp enough to tear through metal. "They are insects. Their planet is small. Their population is limited. They pose no threat to anyone." The Krethian said the same about the Velthari. Ambassador Seelan of the Aquari reminded him. Her voice was soft, like water flowing over stones. "The Velthari destroyed 3 of your colony worlds before they were stopped." Sithax growled but said nothing. The memory of the Velthari was still a fresh wound to his people. High Observer Kalmuth raised a hand for silence. "The question is not whether the humans are a threat today. The question is what they might become tomorrow. They have achieved in 4 centuries what takes other species 10,000 years. If this rate of advancement continues, they will surpass us all within a single millennium." The chamber fell silent. 1,000 years was nothing to the elder races. Some of them had lived longer than that. But the idea that a young, primitive species could surpass them in such a short time was deeply troubling. "We must send an envoy," said Minkeeper Oryx of the Veshan Collective. His voice echoed strangely, as if many people were speaking at once. "We must assess them directly, learn their nature, understand their intentions." "And if their intentions are hostile?" Sivax asked. "Then we deal with them as we have dealt with others," Kalmuth replied. His voice was calm, but there was something cold beneath it. The guided development protocol exists for a reason. Some species are simply too dangerous to be left to their own devices. The vote was unanimous. An envoy would be sent to Earth. The humans would be observed, evaluated, and judged. If they were found worthy, they would be welcomed into the galactic community. If not, the Council would take appropriate measures. Ambassador Thalvan was chosen for the mission. She was young, intelligent, and had a gift for understanding alien minds. She was also expendable, though no one said this out loud. If the humans proved hostile, her death would provide justification for stronger action. Her ship, the Starlight Whisper, left Nexus Prime the following day. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks at maximum FTL speed. During that time, Thalvan studied everything the Council knew about humanity. It was not much. Long-range sensors could detect their ships and their communications, but the details were limited. What she could see was troubling. The humans had fought many wars among themselves. Their history was filled with violence and conflict. They had developed weapons of mass destruction and had actually used them against their own kind. By any standard the Council used, they should have destroyed themselves long ago. But they had not. Somehow, despite everything, they had survived. They had united, and they had reached the stars. When the Starlight Whisper entered the Sol system, Thalvan was met by a human vessel. It was small and crude by galactic standards, with visible seams in its hull and engines that burned far too bright. But it moved with confidence, and its pilot's voice was calm when he hailed her. "Unknown vessel, this is the United Earth Coalition ship Horizon. Please state your identity and intentions." Thalvan activated her translator and spoke carefully. "I am Ambassador Thalvan of the Etherian Concordat, representing the Council of the Stars. I come in peace, seeking to establish contact with your species." There was a long pause. Then the human pilot spoke again. "Please hold your position, Ambassador. We're sending word to Earth Command. Someone will be with you shortly." Thalvan waited. She expected panic, confusion, perhaps fear. First contact with an alien species was usually a momentous occasion for young civilizations. Some species took years to accept the reality of life beyond their world. The humans took 6 hours. A new ship appeared larger than the first, but still small by Council standards. It was called the Prometheus, and its captain was a woman with dark hair and sharp eyes. Her name was Admiral Helena Vasquez, and she greeted Thalvan with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Ambassador, welcome to our solar system. I've been authorized to escort you to Earth and facilitate your meeting with our leaders. Please follow my ship." Thalvan studied the Admiral through the viewscreen. There was something in the human's posture that seemed wrong. She did not look like someone experiencing first contact. She looked like someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "Thank you, Admiral," Thalvan said. "I look forward to meeting your people." The journey to Earth took only a few hours. As they approached the planet, Thalvan saw more human ships, dozens of them, orbiting the planet and moving between the various stations and habitats that surrounded it. Their technology was clearly inferior to anything the Council possessed, but there were far more ships than she had expected. She landed at a facility on the planet's surface, in a region the humans called Geneva. She was met by a delegation of human officials, led by a man named Ambassador David Chun. He was older than Admiral Vasquez, with gray in his hair and lines on his face, but his eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Ambassador Thalvan," he said, bowing slightly. "On behalf of the United Earth Coalition, welcome to our world. We are honored by your visit." The greeting was perfect, polite, formal, exactly what diplomatic protocol required. Too perfect, Thalvan thought, as if they had practiced it many times. "Thank you, Ambassador Chun," she replied. "The Council of the Stars has long observed your species with interest. Your rapid advancement has impressed many among the elder races." "We have worked hard," Chun said. "Humanity has a talent for solving problems quickly when we put our minds to it." Thalvan spent the next several weeks on Earth. She met with human leaders, scientists, and military commanders. She toured their cities, their factories, and their research facilities. She asked many questions, and the humans answered them all with perfect courtesy. But something felt wrong. The humans were too calm, too prepared. First contact should have been a shock to their civilization, but they acted as if it was simply another diplomatic visit. Their leaders knew exactly what questions to expect. Their scientists had explanations ready for every inquiry. Their military commanders spoke openly about their weapons and defenses, showing off their fusion reactors and their ballistic missiles with an almost theatrical pride. It was, Thalvan realized, a performance. They were showing her exactly what they wanted her to see. Nothing more, nothing less. She tried to dig deeper. She requested access to classified facilities and restricted documents. The humans politely refused, citing security concerns. She asked about rumored research programs and secret projects. The humans smiled and said they had no idea what she was talking about. Admiral Vasquez was her constant companion during these visits. The woman was unfailingly polite, always helpful, and absolutely impenetrable. Thalvan had spent her entire career reading alien minds, understanding alien cultures. But Vasquez gave nothing away. Her smiles were walls. Her courtesy was armor. On her final day on Earth, Thalvan met with Ambassador Chun one last time. "I must return to Nexus Prime and make my report to the Council," she said. "They will wish to know my assessment of your species." Chun nodded. "And what will you tell them?" Thalvan hesitated. She knew what she should say. The humans were primitive. Their technology was crude. They posed no threat to the Council or to galactic stability. That was what the data showed. That was what she had seen. But that was not what she felt. "I will tell them that humanity is a remarkable species," she said carefully. "You have achieved much in a short time. The Council will be very interested in your potential." Chen's smile was thin. "I'm sure they will." The Starlight Whisper departed Earth the following morning. As Thalvan watched the blue planet shrink in her view screen, she could not shake the feeling that she had missed something important. The humans were hiding something. She was certain of it. But she had no proof, no evidence, nothing to show the Council. She would have to hope that her suspicions were wrong. The Council received her report 3 weeks later. She told them everything she had observed: the human technology, their social structures, their military capabilities. She described their history of warfare and their capacity for violence. And she shared her concerns, her sense that the humans were not as simple as they appeared. High Observer Kelmoth listened in silence. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "Your observations are noted, Ambassador. But your concerns are based on feelings, not facts. The evidence suggests that humanity is a typical young species, aggressive, perhaps, but limited in their capabilities. They are not a threat to us. But High Observer, the Council has already reached its decision," Kelmoth interrupted. "Humanity will be summoned to Nexus Prime for formal evaluation. We will assess their fitness for membership in the galactic community, and we will take appropriate action based on our findings." Talvan bowed her head. "As the Council wishes." The summons was sent to Earth the following day. It was framed as an invitation, a great honor for a young species. But everyone who read it understood the truth. Humanity was being called before the Council to be judged. And if that judgment went against them, there would be consequences. On Earth, Ambassador David Chun received the summons in his office. Admiral Vasquez stood beside him, reading over his shoulder. "So," she said quietly, "it begins." Chun nodded. "Sooner than we expected. But we're ready, are we?" Chun turned to look at her. His eyes, so often warm and diplomatic, were suddenly very cold. "We've been ready for 20 years, Helena. Since the day we detected their first observation probe. We knew this moment would come. We've prepared for it." Vasquez looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, hidden in facilities that did not appear on any map, humanity's greatest secret waited in the darkness. "They think we're primitives," she said. "They think they're coming to judge us. Let them think that." Chun smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. "Let them underestimate us. It's the last mistake they'll ever make." The delegation departed Earth 1 week later. The Prometheus had been selected as their transport, the same modest ship that had escorted Talvan to Earth. It was cramped, uncomfortable, and decades behind the gleaming vessels of the Council races. It was also not what it appeared to be. As the Prometheus made its way toward Nexus Prime, humanity's other ships moved as well. They slipped out of hidden bases on the dark side of the moon. They emerged from facilities buried beneath the ice of Europa. They launched from stations hidden in the asteroid belt, their drives burning cold and dark. 17 ships in all, each one 3 kilometers long, each one wrapped in a cloak of darkness so complete that not even light could escape. Humanity had learned long ago that the galaxy was watching. They had found the Council's observation probes and studied them in secret. They had decoded the Council's communications and listened to their debates. And they had understood, with perfect clarity, what the galaxy did to species it considered dangerous. So they had hidden their true capabilities. They had built their real fleet in secret, using technology the Council did not know existed. And they had waited patient as stones for the day when they would need it. That day had come. As the Prometheus traveled toward its judgment, 17 shadows slipped through the darkness of space, moving toward their positions around every major Council installation. They made no sound. They left no trace. They were invisible to every sensor the galaxy had ever built. And when the time came, they would remind the Council of a truth that the elder races had forgotten, that the darkness between stars was not empty, that the void itself could hold secrets, and that those who judged others should be very, very careful about what they could not see. The journey to Nexus Prime would take 3 weeks. Humanity would use every moment to prepare, because when they arrived, they would not be asking for permission to exist. They would be demanding it. The Prometheus moved through the darkness of space like a small fish swimming through an endless ocean. Its hull was gray and worn, marked by years of service. Its engines burned bright, leaving a trail of light that any decent sensor system could track from 100 light years away. To any observer, it looked exactly like what it was supposed to look like, a primitive vessel from a primitive species. Making its first journey into the wider galaxy. Ambassador David Chun stood on the bridge, watching the stars slide past the view screen. He was tired. The past 3 weeks had been exhausting, filled with endless meetings and preparations. But he could not afford to rest. Not yet. The real work was just beginning. Admiral Helena Vasquez stood beside him, her arms crossed over her chest. She had traded her dress uniform for something more practical, a simple gray jumpsuit that matched the ship's utilitarian design. Her eyes were fixed on the tactical display, tracking the positions of every known vessel in their vicinity. "Anything?" Chun asked. "Not yet, but we're entering the outer patrol zones. They'll find us soon." Chun nodded. He had expected this. The Council maintained extensive patrol networks along all major travel routes. Any ship approaching Council space would be intercepted, inspected, and catalogued. It was standard procedure, designed to ensure that no one reached Nexus Prime without being thoroughly examined first. The humans have been counting on it. "Remember," Chun said quietly, "we are exactly what we appear to be. Nothing more." Vasquez's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "I know how to play my part, Ambassador." The first contact came 6 hours later. 7 ships dropped out of F-Tail directly ahead of the Prometheus, their weapons already powered and their shields at full strength. They were Krethian warships, massive vessels covered in armor plating and bristling with gun batteries. Each one was 5 times the size of the Prometheus. The lead ship hailed them immediately. The face that appeared on the view screen was reptilian, with scales the color of rust and eyes that burned like hot coals. The creature's mouth was filled with teeth that looked capable of biting through steel. "Human vessel," the Krethian growled. "You are entering Council-controlled space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Chun stepped forward, making sure to keep his posture relaxed and non-threatening. "I am Ambassador David Chun of the United Earth Coalition. We are traveling to Nexus Prime in response to the Council summons. Our documentation has been transmitted to your ship." The Krethian studied him with those burning eyes. Chun could feel the contempt radiating from the creature like heat from a furnace. To the Krethians, humans were nothing weak, soft, pathetic creatures who had barely crawled out of their gravity well. "I am Warlord Sithax of the Krethian Empire," the creature said, "commander of this patrol squadron and enforcer of Council law. Your documentation is being reviewed." There was a long pause. Chun waited patiently, his hands folded behind his back. He had dealt with aggressive negotiators before. The key was to remain calm, to show no fear, to give them nothing to react to. "Your documentation appears to be in order," Sithax said finally. There was disappointment in his voice. "However, as is my right under Council protocols, I am ordering an inspection of your vessel. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Chun bowed his head slightly. "Of course, Warlord. We welcome the opportunity to demonstrate our cooperation." Vasquez's hand twitched toward the weapons console, but she stopped herself. They had prepared for this. They had known it would happen, and they had made absolutely certain that there was nothing on the Prometheus for the Krethians to find. The inspection team arrived 20 minutes later. 12 Krethian warriors in full combat armor, each one armed with plasma rifles and vibration blades. They moved through the Prometheus like conquerors, surveying a defeated enemy, their heavy boots leaving marks on the deck plates. Warlord Sithax led them personally. He was even larger than he had appeared on the view screen, nearly 3 meters tall and built like a living tank. His armor was decorated with the symbols of his victories, dozens of small marks that represented species he had personally conquered or destroyed. "Small," he said, looking around the bridge with obvious disdain. "Your ship is very small." "We are a modest species," Chun replied smoothly. "We do not require the grand vessels that greater civilizations command." Sithax made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Modest. Yes, that is one word for it." The inspection was thorough. The Krethians went through every room, every storage compartment, every maintenance tunnel. They scanned the walls with sophisticated equipment, looking for hidden spaces or concealed systems. They examined the reactor core, the engine systems, the weapons arrays. They found exactly what they expected to find. The Prometheus was powered by a standard fusion reactor, ancient technology by Council standards, but functional. Its engines were conventional FTL drives, slower and less efficient than anything the elder races used. Its weapons were ballistic cannons and low-yield missiles, barely capable of scratching the paint on a Krethian warship. Primitive, one of the warriors reported to Sithax. Their reactor is based on hydrogen fusion. Their weapons are chemical propellant systems. No plasma technology, no graviton systems, no advanced materials. Sithax nodded, his contempt growing with every word. And the crew? 37 humans. Mostly soft tissue composition with limited internal armor. Average strength is approximately 1/5 of a Krethian warrior. They would not survive 10 seconds in close combat. The warlord turned to Chun, his eyes gleaming with amusement. Your species is weak, Ambassador. I have conquered entire civilizations with a single battalion. What could you possibly hope to offer the Council? Chun kept his expression carefully neutral. We offer our willingness to learn and our desire for peaceful cooperation. Peace. Sithax spat the word like a curse. The weak always speak of peace. It is what you say when you have no strength to fight. He stepped closer to Chun, looming over the human ambassador like a predator examining its prey. Chun did not move, did not flinch. He simply looked up at the massive alien and waited. I could kill everyone on this ship without effort, Sithax said quietly. I could destroy your vessel with a single shot from my weakest gun. You understand this, yes? I understand that you have the power to do so, Chun agreed. But I also understand that you are bound by Council law, and that harming a diplomatic envoy would bring consequences even the Krethian Empire would not wish to face. Sithax stared at him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the bridge. You have courage, human. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Perhaps your species is not entirely without value. He turned away, gesturing for his warriors to follow. The inspection is complete. Your vessel carries nothing of interest. You may proceed to Nexus Prime. As the Krethians departed, Chun allowed himself to breathe again. Beside him, Vasquez's hands were clenched into fists. He wanted to kill us, she said quietly. He was looking for an excuse. Yes, Chun agreed. But he did not find one. What if he had looked harder? What if he had scanned deeper? Chun smiled slightly. Then he would have found nothing, because there is nothing to find. The Prometheus is exactly what it appears to be. Vasquez nodded slowly. She understood. The Prometheus was a sacrifice, a decoy designed to be inspected, examined, and dismissed. Its crew had volunteered for this mission, knowing that they would be the public face of humanity. The harmless primitives that the Council expected to see. The real fleet was somewhere else entirely. As the Krethian warships moved away, the Prometheus continued its journey toward Nexus Prime. Chun returned to his quarters to rest, knowing that the easy part was over. The inspection had confirmed everything the Council believed about humanity. They were weak. They were primitive. They were not a threat. It was exactly what humanity wanted them to believe. Deep in the darkness of space, far from any patrol route or sensor network, the Nemesis continued its silent journey. It moved without light, without heat, without any signature that conventional sensors could detect. Its hull was made of materials that did not exist in any Council database, alloys forged in the hearts of artificial singularities, infused with properties that defied conventional physics. Captain Marcus Stone stood on the bridge, watching the holographic display that showed their position relative to the Prometheus. They were 3 light-years apart, moving on parallel courses, yet completely invisible to each other. Status report, he said quietly. All systems operating at optimal efficiency, Captain. His first officer, Commander Sarah Kim, checked her displays. Dark matter containment is stable. Null point generators are charged and ready. All weapon systems are on standby. Stone nodded. The Nemesis was the first of its kind, a vessel designed and built in absolute secrecy over the course of 2 decades. Its drive system used dark matter manipulation to warp space itself, allowing it to travel faster than any conventional FTL drive while producing no detectable energy signature. Its weapons were even more impressive. Null-point annihilators that could punch through any known shield or armor. Graviton cannons that could tear enemy ships apart at the molecular level. And the dark matter projectors, weapons so powerful that even Stone did not fully understand their capabilities. "Any contact with the other ships?" he asked. "Negative, sir. All 17 vessels are maintaining communication silence as ordered. But their position beacons confirm they are on schedule." Stone allowed himself a small smile. 17 dark matter warships, each one hidden in the shadows of space, each one moving toward its designated position around Council space. The Crethians had inspected the Prometheus and found nothing dangerous. They had no idea that the real threat was passing within a few light years of their own homeworld, completely undetected. 20 years of preparation. 20 years of secrecy. 20 years of pretending to be less than they were. And it all led to this moment. "Captain," Kim said suddenly, "we're receiving a coded transmission from Earth Command. Priority 1. Stone's smile faded. On screen, the face that appeared was familiar Director Angela Reyes of the United Earth Intelligence Bureau. She was the architect of Operation Shadowfleet, the woman who had spent 2 decades building humanity's secret armada while the Council watched their decoys. "Captain Stone," she said, "all assets are in position. Phase 1 is complete." "Understood, Director. We are ready to proceed to Phase 2 when ordered." Reyes nodded. "Ambassador Chun will reach Nexus Prime in approximately 2 weeks. At that time, the Council will begin their formal evaluation of humanity. Intelligence suggests they intend to implement the Guided Development Protocol." Stone's jaw tightened. He knew what that meant. The Guided Development Protocol was the Council's polite term for forced submission. They would occupy Earth's solar system, suppress human technology, and control human population growth. Humanity would become a subject species, allowed to exist only at the Council's pleasure. "They will not implement anything," he said quietly. "No," Reyes agreed. "They will not. When Ambassador Chun gives the signal, you will decloak and take position over Nexus Prime. The other ships will do the same at their assigned locations. The Council will see what we have built, and they will understand that humanity is not a species to be controlled. And if they resist," Reyes's eyes were cold, "then we will demonstrate that our weapons are not for show. But that is a last resort, Captain. Our goal is deterrence, not destruction. We want the Council to fear us enough to leave us alone, not so much that they decide we must be eliminated." Stone understood. It was a delicate balance. Show too little strength, and the Council would dismiss them. Show too much, and they would become a threat that had to be destroyed at any cost. Humanity needed to be powerful enough to demand respect, but not so powerful that they inspired terror. "We will be ready," he said. Reyes nodded once, and the transmission ended. Stone turned to look out the viewport at the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, the Prometheus was traveling toward its judgment, carrying diplomats who would face the contempt of the entire galaxy. They would be mocked, dismissed, and threatened. They would endure it all with patience and dignity, knowing that their moment was coming. And when that moment arrived, the darkness would open, and the Council would learn that humanity had been hiding in plain sight all along. The journey continued. Days passed, then weeks. The Prometheus crossed into Council space proper, passing dozens of alien vessels and stations. At each encounter, the humans were polite, cooperative, and utterly unremarkable. They answered questions, submitted to inspections, and accepted the condescending treatment of their hosts with grace. Word spread through the Council's communication networks. The humans were coming. They were weak, primitive, and posed no threat. The Crethians had confirmed it personally. There was nothing to fear from this young species. On Nexus Prime, the Elder races prepared for the formal evaluation. It would be a simple matter: assess the humans, determine their potential, and implement appropriate controls. The guided development protocol had been used many times before. Some species adapted to it well, becoming productive members of galactic civilization. Others resisted and were dealt with accordingly. The Council had no doubt that humanity would fall into one of these categories. They were too weak to resist, too primitive to pose a threat, too young to understand the reality of galactic politics. They were wrong. As the Prometheus entered the Nexus system and began its approach to the Great Station, Chun stood on the bridge and looked at the massive structure filling the viewscreen. It was beautiful. He had to admit, a monument to everything the Elder races had achieved over 17,000 years of galactic dominance. "There it is," Vasquez said quietly. "The seat of power for half the galaxy." "Yes," Chun agreed. "And soon, they will learn that power is not the only thing that matters." He touched the communicator at his belt, a simple device that looked like any standard human technology. But built into its circuits was something the Council's sensors could never detect: a quantum-entangled transmitter, connected directly to the Nemesis and every other ship in the Dark Fleet. When he pressed that button, everything would change. But not yet. First, they had to play their part. They had to endure the Council's judgment, accept their condescension, and wait for exactly the right moment. Humanity had been patient for 20 years. They could be patient a little longer. The Prometheus docked at Nexus Prime, and the human delegation stepped out onto the station. They were met by dozens of alien faces, all looking at them with curiosity, contempt, or indifference. They were escorted through corridors designed for species far larger than humans, past wonders of technology that should have left them speechless. Chun walked with his head high, his expression calm, his every movement projecting nothing but peaceful intent. Inside, his heart was pounding. Inside, he was counting down the hours until the universe changed forever. The Council was waiting. The judgment was about to begin, and humanity was ready. Nexus Prime was the largest structure humanity had ever seen. It hung in space like a small moon, its surface covered with docking ports, sensor arrays, and defensive batteries. Thousands of ships moved around it at any given moment: trade vessels, diplomatic shuttles, military patrols, and countless others. It was the beating heart of galactic civilization, the place where every major decision had been made for 9,000 years. Ambassador David Chun walked through its corridors with his delegation following behind him. Admiral Vasquez was at his side, her eyes constantly moving, taking in every detail of their surroundings. Behind them came a small group of aides, scientists, and security officers, all carefully selected to present exactly the right image. The corridors were enormous, built to accommodate species far larger than humans. The ceilings soared overhead, and the walkways were wide enough to march an army through. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing news feeds, navigation guides, and advertisements in dozens of alien languages. Aliens were everywhere. Chun saw creatures of every shape and size: tall, thin beings that seemed to be made of light, massive reptilian warriors in gleaming armor, floating spheres that communicated through pulses of color, and thousands of others that defied easy description. Many of them stopped to stare at the human delegation as they passed. "They're looking at us like we're animals in a zoo," Vasquez muttered. "Let them look. Chun replied quietly. Let them see exactly what they expect to see. They were escorted to their quarters, a suite of rooms that would have been luxurious by human standards, but were clearly the most basic accommodations the station offered. The furniture was functional, but plain. The windows offered a view of a maintenance section, rather than the scenic vistas that more important guests enjoyed. They want us to feel small, Vasquez observed, looking around the room. Yes, it's a negotiating tactic. Make us feel inferior before the discussions even begin. Chun smiled slightly. It might have worked if we cared about their opinion of us. The evaluation was scheduled to begin the following morning. Chun spent the night reviewing his notes and rehearsing his responses. He knew what the council would ask. He knew what they would accuse humanity of. And he knew exactly how he would respond. He also knew that none of it would matter in the end. The words were just theater. The real conversation would happen when he pressed the button. The Chamber of Stars was even more impressive than Chun had imagined. It was a vast dome at the heart of Nexus Prime, large enough to hold a small city. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing star maps, historical records, and live feeds from across the galaxy. At the center of the chamber, 12 thrones arranged in a circle held on each own of the cell del Cheval. At the center of the chamber, 12 thrones arranged in a circle held at tilde. The representatives of the elder races. Chun recognized some of them from the briefing files. High Observer Kelmoth of the Etherian Concordat sat on a throne of crystallized light, his shimmering form radiating calm authority. Warlord Sithax of the Krethian Empire occupied a seat made of dark metal, his scales gleaming under the chamber's lights. Ambassador Seelan of the Aquari floated in a sphere of water, her fish-like body moving gracefully as she watched the proceedings. And there were others. The silicon-based Lithori, whose bodies were made of living crystal. The Vatian Collective, whose representatives seemed to be many minds sharing one form. The ancient Eternary, who had lived so long that they barely seemed to notice the passage of time anymore. These were the beings who had ruled the galaxy for 17,000 years. These were the judges who would decide humanity's fate. Chun and his delegation were directed to a small platform at the center of the chamber, where they would stand while the council examined them. There were no seats, no accommodations for comfort. They were expected to stand like defendants before a court. Above and around them, galleries filled with representatives of other species looked down. Hundreds of alien faces watched with curiosity, contempt, or indifference. This was entertainment for them, a chance to see another young species be put in its place. High Observer Kalmoth rose from his throne and raised a hand for silence. His voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by the station systems. The Council of the Stars is now in session. We gather to evaluate the species known as humanity, recently emerged from the planet called Earth. This evaluation will determine humanity's status within the galactic community and what measures, if any, are required to ensure their appropriate development. Chun listened in silence. The wording was careful, diplomatic, but everyone in the chamber knew what it really meant. The council would decide whether humanity was dangerous, and if they were found dangerous, they would be controlled. Ambassador Chun, Kalmoth continued, you may speak on behalf of your species. Tell us why humanity deserves a place among the stars. Chun stepped forward. He had prepared this speech carefully, knowing that it would be remembered, though not for the reasons the council expected. Honored elders, he began. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity to present ourselves before the council. We are a young species, as you have noted. We have much to learn about the galaxy and the civilizations that inhabit it. He paused, looking around the chamber at the thousands of faces watching him. But we have also learned something in our short history. We have learned that the universe is vast and often hostile. We have learned that survival requires strength, adaptability, and the willingness to work together. We have learned that peace is precious, but that it must be protected. Pretty words, Warlord Sithax interrupted. But words are cheap, human. Your species has a history of violence that rivals any in the galaxy. You have fought countless wars among yourselves. You have developed weapons of mass destruction and actually used them against your own kind. How can you speak of peace when your history is written in blood? Chun nodded calmly. You are correct, Warlord. Our history is indeed filled with conflict. We do not deny this, but we would point out that conflict has also driven our advancement. Every challenge we have faced has made us stronger, smarter, and more determined. We have learned from our wars. We have grown beyond them. The species that stands before you today is not the same as the one that fought those ancient battles. So you claim, Sithax growled. But claims are easily made. What proof can you offer that humanity has truly changed? We offer the proof of our presence here, Chun replied. We could have stayed on our world, isolated and alone. We could have turned our violent nature outward, conquering the stars by force. Instead, we chose to answer the Council's summons. We chose to come in peace, seeking cooperation rather than conflict. Speaker Varan of the Lithori spoke next, his crystalline voice sharp and cold. You speak of choice, but what choice did you truly have? Your technology is primitive. Your military capabilities are negligible. You could not conquer anything, even if you wished to. You come in peace because you have no other option. Chun was about to respond when another voice cut in. The question is not what humanity can do today, said Minkeeper Arx of the Veshan Collective. The question is what they might become tomorrow. Their rate of advancement is unprecedented. In 4 centuries, they have achieved what takes other species 10,000 years or more. If this continues, they will surpass us all within a single millennium. The chamber stirred at these words. Chun could feel the mood shifting. The Council was not just evaluating humanity's present capabilities. They were afraid of humanity's potential future. This brings us to the heart of the matter, Kelmoth said, his voice grave. The Council has discussed humanity's situation at length. We have considered the evidence, the history, and the projections, and we have reached a conclusion. He paused, letting the tension build. Humanity represents a rapid ascension anomaly. This classification has been applied to only 11 species in the Council's history. In each case, special measures were required to ensure galactic stability. Chun felt Vasquez tense beside him. They had expected this, but hearing it spoken aloud still carried weight. The Council proposes to implement the Guided Development Protocol for Humanity, Kelmoth continued. This protocol is designed to help young species develop in a safe and stable manner. It includes technological oversight, population management, and military supervision. Under this protocol, Earth's solar system will be placed under Council administration. Human technological development will be reviewed and approved by Council experts. And a peacekeeping force will be stationed in your system to ensure compliance. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Chun could hear approval from some quarters, skepticism from others. But the overall mood was clear. The Council had made its decision, and they expected humanity to accept it. You speak of guidance, Chun said, his voice cutting through the noise. But let us be honest about what you are proposing. You are not offering to help us develop. You are offering to control us, to suppress our technology, to limit our growth, to ensure that we never become a threat to your dominance. Kelmoth's expression hardened. We are offering to protect the galaxy from a potential danger. Your species has shown remarkable capabilities, but also remarkable instability. Without guidance, you could easily become a threat to yourselves and others. And if we refuse this guidance, The question hung in the air. Several council members exchanged glances. It was not a question they were accustomed to hearing. Refusal is not an option, Warlord Sithak said bluntly. The council's decisions are not suggestions. They are the law of the galaxy. Those who refuse to comply are dealt with accordingly. Dealt with, Chun repeated. You mean destroyed. Like the Velfari. Like the Carusians. Like all the other species who dared to resist your control. Those species were threats to galactic peace, Kalmoth replied coldly. Their destruction was unfortunate but necessary. And humanity? Will our destruction also be unfortunate but necessary? The chamber fell silent. Chun had spoken the words that no one wanted to say aloud. The truth that everyone knew but pretended not to acknowledge. That depends, Kalmoth said slowly, on whether humanity is wise enough to accept the Council's guidance. Chun looked around the chamber one more time. He saw the contempt on alien faces. He saw the certainty that humanity would submit. He saw the power of an empire that had ruled for 17,000 years. And he smiled. Honored elders, he said, you have judged us by what you could see. You measured our ships and found them primitive. You counted our weapons and found them weak. You studied our history and found us violent. And you concluded that we were no threat to your power. He paused. You were measuring the wrong things. Chun reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, the communicator he had carried since leaving Earth. He pressed a single button on its surface. This session is now being broadcast to every inhabited world in Council space, he said. Every species in the galaxy is watching. Every citizen of every world is seeing what happens in this chamber. The Council members stirred uneasily. This was unexpected. This was not how evaluations were supposed to proceed. What is the meaning of this? Kalmoth demanded. It means that whatever happens next will be witnessed by trillions, Chun replied. It means that the Council's judgment of humanity will be seen by all. And it means that you should choose your next actions very carefully. He looked up at the galleries, at the thousands of alien faces staring down at him. What follows is not a threat. It is a demonstration. And when it is over, you will understand that humanity is not a species to be guided, controlled, or destroyed. We are a species to be respected. Somewhere light years away, Captain Marcus Stone received the signal. He turned to his crew and spoke 2 words. To cloak now. And 17 shadows opened their eyes. In the Chamber of Stars, the holographic displays flickered. New images appeared, sensor readings from across Council space. And on every display, impossible shapes were emerging from the darkness. Ships. Massive ships. 3 kilometers long, materializing out of nothing. Their hulls were black as the void itself, so dark that they seemed to drink in the light around them. They made no sound. They gave off no energy signature. They simply appeared, as if the darkness had suddenly grown teeth. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members shouted in alarm. Military officers scrambled to confirm what the sensors were showing. In the galleries, thousands of aliens stared in disbelief at the images before them. One ship hung over Nexus Prime itself. Others appeared above major colony worlds, military installations, and strategic locations. 17 ships in total, each one in position to strike at the heart of Council power. Chun stood calmly at the center of the storm, watching as 17,000 years of certainty crumbled before him. These are humanity's dark matter warships, he said, his voice carrying through the chaos. They've been in position for months. Your sensors never detected them. Your patrols never found them. They passed through your most secure space like ghosts through walls. He turned to face the Council directly. And now, honored elders, we can begin the real conversation. The Chamber of Stars fell silent. The most powerful beings in the galaxy stared at the human ambassador, and for the first time in 17,000 years, they did not know what to say. Chun smiled. The negotiation was about to begin. The silence that followed was profound. Trillions of beings across council space watched through the broadcast, witnessing something that had never happened before. A young species standing before the elder races and demanding equality. Finally, High Observer Kelmoth rose from his throne. His ethereal form seemed dimmer than before, as if the shock of the past few minutes had drained something from him. "Ambassador Chun," he said slowly, "your demonstration has been effective. The Council will need time to consider what we have witnessed today. These proceedings are suspended until further notice." "Of course, High Observer. We understand that this is a great deal to process." Chun's voice was respectful but firm. "However, I should mention that we will be requiring certain assurances before we agree to any further discussions." "What kind of assurances?" "First, the immediate withdrawal of any proposal related to the Guided Development Protocol. Humanity will not accept any form of technological suppression, military occupation, or population control." Kelmoth nodded slowly. "That seems reasonable, given the circumstances." "Second, the formal recognition of humanity as a sovereign species with full rights to develop according to our own choices. We will not be treated as a junior member of the galactic community to be guided and corrected. This can be discussed. Third, and most importantly, peace. We want nothing more than to live alongside the Council in mutual respect and cooperation. We have no interest in war, in conquest, or in destruction. We only wish to be free." The High Observer was silent for a long moment. Around him, the other elder races watched and waited. They had spent 17,000 years making decisions for the galaxy. Now, for the first time, they were facing a situation where their usual methods would not work. "Your demands will be considered," Kelmoth said finally. "But, Ambassador Chun, you must understand what you have done today cannot be undone. You have shown the entire galaxy that humanity possesses weapons capable of threatening Council installations. Even if we agree to your terms, there will be those who see you as a danger that must be eliminated." "We are aware of this risk," Chun replied. "But we have calculated that the greater risk lies in submission. Throughout our history, those who could not defend themselves have been conquered, enslaved, or destroyed. We will not allow that to happen to our people." Admiral Vasquez stepped forward once more. "High Observer, I want to make something clear. The Dark Matter Fleet is a defensive force. Its purpose is to ensure that humanity cannot be threatened, conquered, or controlled. We have no intention of using these weapons unless we are forced to do so." She looked around the chamber, addressing not just the Council, but all the beings watching through the broadcast. "But if anyone, whether Council or otherwise, attempts to harm Earth or its people, they will discover that humanity is not as helpless as we appear. We have spent 20 years preparing for this moment. We have built ships that your sensors cannot detect, weapons that your shields cannot stop, and technology that your scientists cannot understand." She paused. "We do not want to use these capabilities, but we will if we must. And anyone who doubts our resolve should remember one thing. Humanity did not survive its own violent history by being gentle. We learned long ago that peace must be protected by strength. And we have more strength than you can imagine." The broadcast ended. Throughout Council space, trillions of beings sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had witnessed. The mighty elder races, who had ruled the galaxy for 17 millennia, had been outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitives. In the Chamber of Stars, the Council members slowly began to disperse. They had much to discuss, new strategies to develop, new calculations to make. The universe had changed, and they needed to understand what that meant for their future. Warlord Sithax remained on his throne longer than the others. He stared at the holographic image of the Nemesis, still hanging in space above Nexus Prime like a predator waiting to strike. "Impossible," he muttered to himself. "This is impossible." But deep down, he knew the truth. He had spent his entire life believing that the Krethians were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. He had conquered worlds and destroyed fleets without ever facing a true challenge. He had looked down on other species as weak, inferior, unworthy of respect. And now, species he had dismissed as soft and primitive had demonstrated capabilities beyond anything his people possessed. They had hidden in the darkness of space for months, watching, waiting, planning, and he had never suspected a thing. For the first time in his long life, Warlord Sithax felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Across the galaxy, other beings were feeling the same thing. In Etherian council chambers and Krethian military bases, in Lithori research facilities and Aquari diplomatic centers, the leaders of the elder races were coming to terms with a new reality. The galaxy was no longer theirs to command. The rules they had written were no longer absolute. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity was watching, waiting, and ready. The age of the elder races was not over, but it had changed forever, and humanity was just getting started. The silence in the Chamber of Stars was unlike anything that had ever occurred in its 9,000-year history. The elder races, who had ruled the galaxy with absolute certainty for 17 millennia, sat frozen on their thrones. Their advisors stood motionless at their sides. Even the thousands of spectators in the galleries above seemed to have stopped breathing. Every eye was fixed on the holographic displays that floated throughout the chamber. The images showed the same thing from different angles. Massive black ships hanging in space above council installations, their hulls darker than the void itself. Warlord Sithax was the first to break the silence. He rose from his throne, his scales flushing red with fury, his clawed hands gripping the armrest so tightly that the metal began to bend. "This is impossible," he growled. "No ship can evade our sensors. No technology can hide from Krethian detection systems." "And yet," Ambassador Chen said calmly, "they did." Sithax turned to his military aide, who was frantically working at a portable terminal. "Confirm these readings. Tell me this is some kind of trick, a holographic deception." The aide's voice trembled when he responded. "My lord, the readings are confirmed. All 17 vessels are real. They are holding position exactly where the displays show. And they are..." He paused, checking his data again. "They are not registering on any of our standard sensors. We are only detecting them because they are allowing themselves to be detected." High Observer Kelmuth leaned forward on his throne, his ethereal form flickering with agitation. "Ambassador Chun, you will explain this immediately. How did your species develop this technology? Where did these ships come from?" Chun clasped his hands behind his back and looked up at the elder race without fear. "I could explain, High Observer, but I think it would be better if you heard it from someone with more direct experience." He turned to Admiral Vasquez, who stepped forward to stand beside him. Her expression was calm, professional, and absolutely confident. She looked up at the council as if they were fellow officers rather than the rulers of half the galaxy. "I am Admiral Helena Vasquez of the United Earth Coalition Navy," she said. "I am also the overall commander of the operation you are witnessing. What you see in your displays is the dark matter fleet humanity's answer to the question you never thought to ask." "What question?" Kelmuth demanded. "The question of what humanity was really doing while you were watching us build our decoy fleet." Vasquez touched a control on her wrist, and new images appeared on the chamber's displays. They showed the Nemesis, the ship currently holding position above Nexus Prime, in detail. Its design was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. There were no visible engine ports, no weapon batteries, no sensor arrays. Just a sleek black hole that seemed to absorb light itself. For 20 years, Vasquez continued, we knew the Council was watching us. We detected your observation probes. We decoded your communications. We understood exactly what you thought of us primitives to be studied, cataloged, and eventually controlled. She paused, letting her words sink in. So we gave you what you expected to see. We built fusion reactors while our real scientists were harnessing dark matter. We developed conventional weapons while our real engineers were creating null-point annihilators. We launched crude FTL ships while our real fleet traveled by bending space itself. Ambassador Seelan of the Aquari spoke, her voice rippling through the water sphere that surrounded her. You speak of dark matter manipulation. This is a theoretical field that our best scientists have studied for thousands of years. They concluded that practical applications were impossible. The energy requirements alone would require harnessing the output of an entire star. Your scientists were wrong, Vasquez replied simply. Or rather, they were limited by their own assumptions. They assumed that dark matter manipulation required external power sources. We discovered that dark matter itself could be used as a power source, an infinite, self-sustaining reaction that generates more energy than it consumes. The chamber stirred with disbelief. What Vasquez was describing violated every principle of physics that the elder races understood. Impossible, Speaker Varan of the Lithori declared. What you describe would require knowledge beyond anything our civilizations have achieved. Yes, Vasquez agreed. It would. And we achieved it anyway. That is what humanity does, Speaker Vora. We find solutions that others consider impossible. We break through barriers that others cannot even see. Warlord Sithak slammed his fist against his throne. Enough talk. These ships of yours, what are their capabilities? What weapons do they carry? Vasquez turned to face the Crethian warlord directly. There was no fear in her eyes, no hesitation. She looked at the massive reptilian warrior as if he were simply another obstacle to be overcome. Each dark matter warship is 3 kilometers in length, she said. Their primary armament consists of null-point annihilators, weapons that generate targeted singularities capable of destroying any known material, including the exotic alloys used in Council warship armor. Their secondary weapons include graviton cannons, which can tear apart molecular bonds at a distance of several 100,000 kilometers. She paused. But their most significant capability is not offensive. It is their ability to exist undetected. The dark matter field that surrounds each ship does not simply hide their energy signatures. It renders them invisible to all known forms of detection. We could park a ship inside your home system for years, and you would never know it was there. The implication hung in the air like a blade. If humanity could hide ships inside Council space undetected, they could strike anywhere at any time. No defense network could stop them. No early warning system could detect them. The entire military structure of the Council was suddenly obsolete. You mentioned your ships have been in position for months, Kalmoth said slowly. Is this true? It is. The Nemesis has been orbiting Nexus Prime for 93 days. The Thanatos has been holding position above the Crethian homeworld for 87 days. The Acheron has been patrolling the Etherian core systems for over 100 days. Vasquez met the High Observer's gaze without flinching. We have been here, watching you, for longer than you can imagine. And you never knew. Chum stepped forward again, taking over from the Admiral. What we have shown you today is not meant as a threat. It is meant as a demonstration. You intended to judge humanity and find us wanting. You intended to implement your guided development protocol and reduce us to a subject species. But you cannot guide what you cannot control. and you cannot control what you cannot see. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of the elder races one by one. We do not seek war with the Council. We do not wish to conquer your worlds or destroy your civilizations. We only wish to be left alone, to develop according to our own vision, to make our own choices, to determine our own future. And if we refuse? Warlord Sithax demanded. If the Council decides that humanity's actions today constitute an act of war, then you will discover that what we have shown you today is only a fraction of our capabilities. The words hung in the air. Sithax stared at the human ambassador, searching for signs of bluff or deception. He found none. You would threaten the Council? He said finally. You would risk the destruction of your entire species for the sake of your pride? It is not pride, Chun replied. It is survival. You have shown us how you treat species that cannot defend themselves. You have shown us what happens to those who submit to your guidance. We have studied your history, Warlord. We know what the Council has done to species it considers dangerous. He stepped closer to the center of the chamber, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. Humanity has one simple message for the Council. We are not your subjects. We are not your students. We are not your threat. We are your equals. And we will be treated as such. Admiral, Commander Kim said, we're receiving a message from Earth Command. Director Reyes wants a full debrief on the mission. Vasquez nodded. Tell her we'll transmit a report within the hour. But the short version is simple. Mission accomplished. That's all, Admiral? That's all that needs to be said. Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. We came. We showed them what we could do, and we got what we wanted. Humanity is safe. Earth is free. The Council knows better than to threaten us. She looked out at the stars, thinking about everything that had happened. 20 years of preparation. Months of waiting in the darkness. And then, in a single moment, the entire galaxy had changed. What do you think happens now? Kim asked. Now? Now we watch. We wait. We make sure they keep their promises. Vasquez turned away from the viewport. The Council accepted our terms because they had no choice. But that doesn't mean they're happy about it. Some of them will be looking for weaknesses, searching for ways to undermine us. We need to be ready. You think they'll try something? I think we'd be foolish to assume they won't. The Crethians especially. They don't take well to being humiliated. And there are other species out there, ones that aren't part of the Council, who might see an opportunity in all this chaos. She shook her head. No, Commander. The real work is just beginning. Kim nodded slowly. So we stay hidden. We keep watching until we're sure it's safe to do otherwise. Which might be never. Vasquez's voice was calm, practical. The voice of someone who had spent her entire career preparing for the worst. Humanity showed the galaxy our teeth today. Now we have to make sure no one ever forgets that we can bite. Back on Earth, the news of the treaty spread quickly. Celebrations erupted in cities around the world. People gathered in the streets, cheering and crying and embracing strangers. For the first time in 20 years, they could speak openly about what had been hidden. They could be proud of what their species had accomplished. Ambassador Chen watched the celebrations from his office in Geneva. He was exhausted, more tired than he had ever been in his life. But there was a smile on his face as he looked at the reports coming in from around the world. You should get some sleep, a voice said from behind him. Chun turned to see Director Reyes standing in the doorway. She looked almost as tired as he felt. I could say the same to you, he replied. Reyes walked to the window and stood beside him, looking out at the city below. We did it, David. We actually did it. We did. Though I'm not sure I believe it yet. Believe it. Reyes put a hand on his shoulder. Humanity stood up to the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy and won. Not through violence, not through war, but through preparation and cunning and patience. We showed them that we couldn't be bullied, couldn't be controlled, couldn't be made into someone else's subjects. We also made a lot of enemies today. Yes, we did. Ray's voice was serious. The Krethians will never forgive us for humiliating them. The Etherians will spend centuries trying to figure out how we developed our technology. And there will be other species we haven't even met yet who will see us as a threat to be eliminated. So what do? We keep building. We keep preparing. We keep watching. Reyes turned to face him. Today was a victory, David, but it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Humanity has shown the galaxy what we can do. Now we have to prove that we deserve the place we've claimed. Chun nodded slowly. He understood. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with species that had been competing for survival since before humanity's ancestors had climbed down from the trees. They had won this battle, but the war for survival never truly ended. What about the other projects? He asked quietly. The ones we didn't reveal? Rhea smiled slightly. Those continue. The dark matter fleet was only what we chose to show them. There are other programs, other technologies, other capabilities that remain hidden. If the Council ever breaks the treaty, if they ever try to move against us, they'll discover that we held back far more than they realized. And if they don't, if they actually honor their agreement, then those projects will never be needed, and humanity can focus on peaceful development. Reyes shrugged. But we don't build weapons because we want to use them. We build them so that we never have to. Outside the window, the celebrations continued. Fireworks lit up the night sky. Music drifted up from the streets below. Humanity was celebrating its victory, its freedom, its place among the stars. But in the darkness of space, 17 ships continued their silent patrol. They moved without light, without sound, without any trace that they existed. They watched the borders of human space, guarded the approaches to Earth, and stood ready to defend their people against any threat. Humanity had earned its seat at the galactic table. They had demanded respect and received it. They had shown that they were not primitives to be guided or subjects to be controlled. But they had also learned the lesson that the galaxy had tried to teach them, that peace was precious, but it could only be maintained through strength. That trust had to be earned, not given. That the darkness between stars held dangers that never slept. And so humanity would never forget to be watchful. They would smile at diplomatic functions and sign treaties in good faith and work toward a better future. But they would always remember the moment when they had stood alone before the judgment of the elder races. They would remember the looks of contempt on alien faces, the certainty that humanity would submit, the assumption that they were too weak to resist. And they would remember how wrong those assumptions had been. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about humanity that day. They were not to be underestimated. They were not to be controlled. They were not to be threatened. And they would never, ever kneel. This was the truth that the dark matter fleet represented. Not a desire for war or conquest, but a simple statement of fact. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, and it would defend that place with everything it had. The elder races had ruled the galaxy for 17,000 years. They had built an empire of order and control, where every species knew its place, and those who resisted were destroyed. But now there was a new power in the galaxy, a species that had hidden in the darkness, watching and waiting and preparing. A species that had turned its violent history into a weapon of survival. A species that refused to accept the limits others tried to place upon it. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The days following humanity's demonstration were the most turbulent in Council history. Emergency sessions were called. Secret meetings were held. Military commanders demanded action while diplomats urged caution. Throughout council space, the same questions were asked again and again. How had the humans done it? What else were they hiding? And what should be done about them? Ambassador David Chun waited patiently through it all. He remained in his quarters on Nexus Prime, accepting visitors, answering questions, and projecting an image of calm confidence. The dark matter fleet held its positions around council space, visible reminders that humanity was not bluffing. And across the galaxy, trillions of beings watched and wondered what would happen next. On the third day, High Observer Kelmoth requested a private meeting. Chun agreed, and they met in a small chamber far from the grand halls of the council. No advisors were present. No recordings were made. It was just the two of them, facing each other across a simple table. "You have placed the council in an impossible position," Kelmoth said. His voice was tired, and his ethereal form seemed dimmer than before. "For 17,000 years, we have maintained order in the galaxy. We have protected weaker species from predators. We have prevented wars that would have killed trillions. And now you appear with your hidden fleet, and you expect us to simply accept you as equals?" Chun leaned back in his chair, studying the ancient being before him. "With respect, High Observer, your protection has come at a price. The species you have guided have lost their independence. The wars you have prevented have been replaced by a system of control that crushes any who resist. You speak of order, but what you have created is a prison with golden bars. And what would you have instead? Chaos? War? The strong preying on the weak with no one to stop them? No, I would have choice." Chen's voice was firm, but not hostile. "I would have species free to develop according to their own vision. I would have diversity instead of uniformity. I would have a galaxy where different paths are possible, not just the one the Council approves." Kelmoth was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost sad. "You do not understand what we have prevented. You do not know the horrors that existed before the Council brought order. Species that consumed other species for food. Civilizations that existed only to destroy. Wars that lasted for millennia and killed more beings than currently exist in the galaxy. We have studied your history," Chun replied. "We know what the galaxy was like before the Council. We understand why you created the system you did. But that does not mean it is the only system possible. And it does not mean it is the right one for humanity. Then what do you propose?" Chun reached into his jacket and withdrew a small data chip. He placed it on the table between them. "This contains a formal treaty proposal. It outlines the terms under which humanity would be willing to enter into a relationship with the Council. Not as subjects, not as students, but as partners." Kelmoth looked at the chip but did not touch it. "What kind of terms?" "Full sovereignty for humanity's territory. No Council interference in human development or policy. No military presence in human space without explicit permission. In return, humanity agrees to respect Council space, abide by reasonable diplomatic protocols, and work toward peaceful cooperation on matters of mutual interest. And the dark matter fleet? It remains. It is our guarantee that these terms will be honored. As long as the Council respects our sovereignty, our ships will pose no threat to anyone. But if anyone attempts to harm Earth or its people..." Chun let the sentence trail off. The High Observer was quiet for a long time. Finally, he reached out and took the data chip. "I will present this to the Council. I cannot promise they will accept it, but I will argue in your favor." He paused. "You should know, Ambassador, that there are those among the elder races who believe the only solution is to destroy humanity before you become too powerful to stop. I am aware. That is why the fleet remains in position. And if they attack? If the Council decides that the risk of allowing humanity to exist is too great, Chun met his eyes without flinching. Then the galaxy will learn exactly how dangerous humanity can be when threatened. But I do not believe it will come to that. The Council has survived for 17,000 years by being practical, by recognizing when fighting is pointless. And fighting humanity now would be pointless. You cannot defeat what you cannot find. And you cannot find what does not wish to be found. Kelmoth nodded slowly. You have thought this through carefully. We have had 20 years to think it through. Every possibility, every contingency, every scenario. This is not a bluff, High Observer. This is a carefully planned strategy designed to achieve one goal: humanity's survival and freedom. Nothing more, nothing less. The meeting ended soon after. Kelmoth returned to the council chambers with the treaty proposal, and Chun returned to his quarters to wait. The debate lasted for 5 days. Chun received updates through various channels, some official, some not. The Krethians demanded war. The Etherians counseled caution. The Lithori wanted to study humanity's technology. The Aquari sought compromise. Each elder race had its own interests, its own fears, its own vision of what should be done. But in the end, practical concerns won out. The dark matter fleet was too powerful to ignore and too hidden to fight. Attacking humanity would mean risking catastrophic losses with no guarantee of victory. And even if the Council won, they would be weak and vulnerable to other threats that might emerge. On the 6th day, High Observer Kelmoth summoned Ambassador Chun back to the Chamber of Stars. The chamber was full again, but the atmosphere was different. There was no contempt in the alien eyes that watched Chun enter. There was no confidence in the postures of the elder races on their thrones. Instead, there was something that Chun had never expected to see: respect. The Council has reviewed humanity's treaty proposal, Kelmoth announced. After considerable debate, we have reached a decision. He paused, and the chamber fell silent. The Council of the Stars hereby recognizes humanity as a sovereign species with full rights of self-determination. The Guided Development Protocol is withdrawn. No Council military presence will be established in human space, and humanity is invited to participate in the galactic community as an equal partner. The words echoed through the chamber. In the galleries above, thousands of alien beings stirred in surprise. This was unprecedented. Never before had a young species been granted such status. Never before had the Council acknowledged an equal so quickly. Chun bowed his head slightly. The United Earth Coalition accepts these terms. We look forward to a long and peaceful relationship with the Council and its members. But Kelmoth was not finished. However, Ambassador, the Council wishes to understand something. Your species has demonstrated capabilities far beyond what we expected. Your technology appears to surpass our own in several critical areas. How did you achieve this? What secrets have you discovered that we have not? Chun smiled slightly. With respect, High Observer, some things are better left unknown. We have shown you enough to establish our capabilities. We have no interest in sharing the details of our technology or our research. Such knowledge is ours to keep. You do not trust us. We trust you to act in your own interests, as any wise species should. Chun looked around the chamber. We bear no hostility toward the Council or any of its members. We want only to be left in peace to pursue our own path. But we have learned something from our history. Those who share all their secrets soon have none left to protect them. The answer satisfied no one, but there was nothing the Council could do about it. Humanity had made its position clear. They would cooperate, they would participate, they would be friends and partners. But they would never be subjects, and they would never reveal more than they chose to. The formal treaty was signed 3 days later. Ambassador Chun represented humanity, pressing his thumb to the document alongside representatives of all 12 elder races. Trillions watched through broadcasts across the galaxy as a new chapter in galactic history began. The dark matter fleet withdrew from its positions around Council installations, but not back to Earth. Instead, the ships dispersed into the darkness of space, returning to their hidden positions where no sensor could find them. They were out of sight, but never out of reach. Admiral Vasquez returned to the Nemesis after the signing ceremony. She stood on the bridge, watching the stars slide past the view screen as the ship moved toward its new patrol zone.